let's just start. Okay, so today we're talking about skin, focusing on skin and the messages behind the symptoms, because there's a root cause to everything. Every symptom that you have, there's a meaning behind it, and there's no such thing as accidents either. It's your body telling you messages. So, but let's just narrow this down into more succinct. So we're talking about skin, and I really love working with skin because it's very often the results are quite almost instant and certainly quite quick, usually. Not every case, but mostly has been my experience. And so I just want to see if I can work out how to share my screen, and then I will be able to go. And I'll be able to talk in more detail with you. So I guess you can all see me on this, so that's great. Okay, so this top picture here is this one round here on the left. This is my client who came to me in March 2019. We actually started a conversation about methotrexate, which is what these doctors wanted to put him on. He'd got this red itchy skin all over his body, and he was just desperate for some help. So he was talking to me about what methotrexate is, whether I recommend it or not, because my daughter had been on it when she had her autoimmune disease. So we had a conversation around that. But I actually said to him in the end, I think I can work with you even better. You know, let's just have a session together and see what happens. And he was so desperate. He was like my most skeptical client in the beginning, and became almost my #1 fan, because you can see how on the left of, I guess it's still the left for you, on the left of the picture is really red and raw, and he'd got that pretty much all over his body. It was in his scalp, his arms, his torso, and this awful, must have been so painful and so itchy. He must have really kind of wanted to climb out of his own skin. It must have been really dreadful. So this was March 2019, and then the images on the right, or image on the right, is the same leg 2 weeks later. And the results really did blow both our minds, because this was the first time I'd ever worked with skin. It was still quite new. The modality I trained in was still quite new to me, so, and I didn't really know what I could do. So it was just, wow, look at this, look at that. And now, you know, it's obviously gone. And the root cause, so this is what I want to talk to you about as well, the messages behind the symptoms. You can see how angry his skin is. And it was actually anger that was the suppressed emotion lying behind it. Anger from being a child, just usual kid stuff really, but it was something he hadn't been able to express properly. And when you can't express it, those emotions have to go somewhere. So he kept it all in, and it became like a pressure cooker, and his skin was like, will you please notice that I'm in this pain, that he didn't even know that he was. So that's the first one. And then this is a testimonial that he gave me. I had psoriasis for over 15 years, and my skin has never felt as good as now. I'm looking forward to wearing shorts and t-shirts with confidence this year. And the image there is his elbow on the left and on the right. So you can see how painful that must have been. And just 2 weeks later, it's got normal skin, because we went to the root. And that's why this is so beautiful. It's going back to his personal root cause. And I'll tell you more in a moment about how I get to the root cause, because it's not me second guessing what went on. You know, as the client, it's just that you don't know probably on a conscious level. So that's Pat. And that was just, like I said, it was my first real physical, apart from the autoimmune disease that I'd helped with my daughter. I worked with anxiety too, but this was something that was actually tangible, and you actually see what had gone on and how we released the emotions that we needed to. So then in February, I believe it was, in 2021, Kerry came to me looking for help with psoriasis as well, and she got it on her, predominantly on her forehead, and she had got no idea. It started when I think it was in her 20s, so she'd had it for quite some time. And her root cause was that I'm trying to remember it actually, her root cause was that she had self-harmed when she was in her teens, only once, but when she did, her mum noticed that she was in pain. And so I was like, oh, isn't that interesting that you had that help when you self-harmed and your mum could see that wound, and now you've got psoriasis. It's like your body saying, will you please notice what's going on? And she went, oh yes, that's exactly what it is. I am, I've got to wear my pain because no one's seeing it, no one's noticing. And when she could see it, all this trauma that she'd gone through as a teenager that she wasn't going through now, she was able to release it and let go of it. And again, I think it was about 2 weeks between her before and after as well. It certainly wasn't very long. So and she said, it's really amazing how working with my mind is so much more effective than applying every type of cream on my skin. And that is so true, because when you get to the root, it's like weeding a garden. You just pick it out, pull it out, and it's just something your body doesn't need to hold on to anymore. You're releasing those emotions so that whatever the issue is can heal. And then this is a really lovely one as well. This lovely lady, Zoe, came to me with, as you can see, skin issues on her, like dermatitis on her stomach and her back. And they're the before and after pictures, they're the before pictures, as you can see. And her root cause, she couldn't believe it, because her root cause was that her body, her mind believed that it wasn't safe for her to be on Instagram, because she was posting pictures like a little bit like that with her bra top on, that the crop top kind of thing. And even though it was only in a friends group rather than on the whole of Instagram, her mind obviously believed it wasn't safe for her to do that, to be so visible or so sort of semi-naked or whatever you want to call it. So that her body decided, or her mind decided, that let's give her a skin rash so that she doesn't make herself so vulnerable on Instagram. And she just couldn't believe that's what it was. And when she understood it, again, it was easy to release. And she's never, as far as I know, she's never been on Instagram wearing that kind of clothes anymore. So the skin rash hasn't needed to come back. So that was quite a fun one to deal with. We'd never have guessed that that was what her root cause was. But again, let's see if I can scroll down. Yeah, so then a week later, you can see on that screen, that image, it's fading, and there it's gone completely. That's 2 weeks later on that one. So a week later and then 2 weeks later, it's disappeared. So that is really fabulous. And then this one. Now this one is a client I worked with just yesterday. And we've had several sessions. This isn't just a one-hit wonder that a lot of mine are, that we just get to that root cause and release it. This one has taken about 4 or 5 sessions. I can't actually remember, but it's been more than one. And these were her images yesterday. The pink, the top ones, was before we worked together. And she was just saying, it's never going to go. I'm just so going to have to put up with it. And they're so painful. They're bleeding, they're raw, they itch. I have to scratch. She's sort of scratching at them. And so what I did differently with her that I'd done previously, because she just said, I just don't believe it's going to release so much emotion in the previous sessions, but it was still not doing anything. So I took her to a future self, because what I do, I'll tell you now, really, it might be an easy thing to do. So what we do is that I use hypnotherapy, which is just about you being relaxed. And while you're relaxed, you're talking to me with your eyes closed. And then it's like guided meditation with a real purpose, a real like laser-like focus. So we go back to how, when and where it all began. And your mind just shows you how, when and where. You start daydreaming. And it's almost like a daydream. It's like, oh, well, I'm just remembering that. And it's stuff we go back to the past, you know, where it's all began, and just looking at, well, I'm 5, I'm 6, I'm 7, and I'm having to choose between parents or whatever it is, and it's making me feel lost and helpless and hopeless, and kind of got to just divide myself between different parents and that kind of thing. So that's what it might be about. And then we look at, it's not what happened, it's the emotions you've attached to it that's really important. So then it's my job to link those emotions into, and to emotionally thread them into how they those themes and any others that may come to you have actually showed up in the present moment. What it's all about is linking that stuff in the past. It's like a string of lights in your mind, so it's going da, 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 that's true, that's true, that's true, therefore this is true now. And it's about uncovering it, rewiring it, more empowering you from those old emotions that you thought was true when you were little, and more than likely it isn't true now in the now moment, but you probably don't know what you've been holding on to. So the images at the top with the pink background were before we worked together, and the ones at the bottom are an hour later. And so this time I took her to her future, and we went right in the future. I think she was about, we did 2 scenes, I think 18 and 20, somewhere around there. So because she's a young girl, so that was her future, and she could see that actually she was confident, she was happy, she got friends around her, and everything was going to work out just fine. And then what I do is I give the client a recording. So I was doing the recording for her, and as I was doing the recording, she opened her eyes, and I was just thinking, will you just relax? That's what you're supposed to be doing. But she was opening her eyes because she could feel the pain had gone already. That was the incredible thing, and that's the difference. She knows that that has changed for her. So that's what this is all about. So that was a really fabulous session just yesterday. And now Sarah's joined us. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
It's good to see you. So thank you for joining me on the skin conditions, because actually I worked with you too on your hands, didn't I?
Yeah.
So it's great that you joined me. Do you want to tell me a little bit about, because not everybody has seen the testimonials that you've done, I don't suppose. It was only yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So I came to Rachel when I'd been struggling with what I believe was dermatitis on my hands. I've been prone to that over the years, and it's flared up, and then I've treated it and it's settled down. But then I had a big life change back in 2017. I got divorced. It was quite traumatic. And then I discovered I was getting a lot of inflammation on my hands. It kind of flared up, and then it stayed. It wouldn't go. And I gone to the GP to get sort of standard treatment, which is steroid cream and emollient cream, and just to keep the inflammation down. And I kept doing that, and nothing was budging it. It wouldn't settle down, and it turned from an acute problem into a chronic issue. And periodically I went back to the GPs, and they gave me other steroid creams, because I have a quite bad reaction to some of the steroid creams. It seemed to make it worse, not better. And that's how it's been going on since, well, up to the point when I worked with Rachel. It was I think we worked it out, didn't we, Rachel? It was something like
2017, about 5 years, wasn't it?
About 5 years.
Yeah.
And there was no sign of it improving. In fact, if anything, it was getting worse. And then I eventually found a steroid cream that had a compound antibiotic as well that was more tolerable. So I was using that. And at that point, I'd also, because it was so painful and so irritable, I was actually scratching a lot as well. I was doing that in my sleep. So it sort of morphed from an acute flare-up to a chronic skin problem that was just proving impossible to shift with normal means. And I was also, because I was aware that it was a possible stress response as well. So I've been doing a lot of stress management techniques, and I've been meditating regularly in that time as well since my divorce. But so I was looking after myself emotionally as best I could, and managing stress and all of that, and it was still not getting a resolution, still no end to it. Was getting really depressing, because my hands were, the skin on my hands was becoming there's a lot of scar tissue, and I was actually scratching it when I wasn't realizing as well. And it was, the worst thing about it though was that it was very, very painful, and to the point where the last GP appointment I had, they were concerned it might be something called psoriatic arthritis, which is a sort of joint-based and skin-based sort of autoimmune condition. So because that's what it was presenting like. And in fact, a relative of mine, my sister, who's a physio, she said, "Oh, Sarah, that rash looks like something that's a bit more serious. I think you definitely need to look into that a bit more deeply." So the GP did. We're sort of still waiting for results and things like that. But basically, in that time, that's when I worked with Rachel as well, and we had an RTT session.
Mm-hmm.
And literally from the session, we got to root causes, which was quite interesting. And I do a lot of this work as well with other people, but working on yourself is a little bit more tricky sometimes. So Rachel was able to see some connections and some relevant things that were possible root causes, and was able to work with me in RTT. And then that evening, I went to bed, and I woke up and my hands felt 100% better in the morning. And it's like I could feel that they'd actually stopped hurting. And
it must have been such a big relief after 5 years of having that pain in your head all the time, trying to sort of push past it and try and ignore it. And
absolutely, it was just something I kind of got used to, and that's not good, is it? But I kind of got used to it.
It's amazing.
And suddenly it stopped. It was like, oh, this is what I'm meant to feel like, because there was such a lot of irritation. It was so sore. I was adding to the problems by the scratching as well. It was just a mess. And psychologically, I was feeling really bad because my hands looked bad as well. And I thought, they're actually aging.
Let's have a look. Give us a.
Well, I've got blue nails on at the minute.
I don't worry about that. We're not going about
I've just put some cream on. You can see where the damage is, because it was really weird as well. It was over the knuckles, and it was all of that hand, and there was a few fingers on this hand. And so you can still see the lumpy bits. I call them lumpy bits. There's no pain there at all, and that, to me, is a major breakthrough, because it was unbelievably painful at times. It was either more or less painful, but I was never completely pain-free with it. And that's why I was a bit worried it was affecting my joints as well, because it was really painful. And it's just, so I'm expecting the horrible bits of skin to eventually sort themselves out. I think they'll take a little while to get back to normal, but the pain stopped, and that's massive. That means I'm less likely to scratch it or do anything like that.
And you look lighter as well. You look like you're not you know, it's not weighing you down anymore, is it? I guess that's what it is.
It's just lovely. It's just nice not to have, you know, it's like when it stops, it's just the relief of something horrible stopping is just really nice. It's like, yes, I think we've dealt with this, because I literally tried everything and it was amazing. So if anyone else is sort of, because I think skin does react to emotional stress. It's our biggest, it's the biggest organ on our body,
and the only visible one, really.
And there's a flare up of any kind, it becomes. And I know people who do have eczema and dermatitis and other skin conditions, maybe like psoriasis, that does flare when there's stress. And there's a limit to how much stress you can do. I did everything. I did the meditation, I did stress management, put myself first, my well-being. I was making decisions about that all the time. And what it came down to was I had quite a tough childhood. I won't go into the detail. It was really tough, a lot of stress. And because of that, there was a root cause there. It was actually trying to help me out.
Very often these things do. They're there to sort of protect you and nurture you, and like, will you please look at the plane I'm in? That kind of thing. That's generally what I found with skin conditions. So yeah, it's really good. So thank you so much for joining. It's been absolutely wonderful that you just happened to pop on as we're talking about skins. That's great.
Yeah, well, I got a notification. I thought, oh, it's Rachel. I have to pop in and go and see.
So good on Facebook. That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think that's, if anybody's got any questions, then please feel free to pop them in the comments below or message me privately. But yeah, and I love working with skin because it shows the difference between, you know, because you can have anxiety, someone can be like looking worried and then they're out shopping looking happy. It doesn't really prove anything. But when you've got actual skin before and after, and I don't know whether you saw a minute ago, Sarah, did you see that picture of Sarah's hands? I had to take her to a future self because she really did not believe that it was ever going to go. And that was yesterday, and already you can see it scabbing over. It's not active anymore, and she knows it because she's like you. Oh, that pain's gone. That pricking feeling is gone. It's not there anymore, and so she's just so happy. It's brilliant. It really is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that didn't just take one session. That was about four or five. Can't remember.
It's amazing, and yeah, it's the most clear example that something's not right, and our bodies really are very wise, and they'll tell us when something's not right. And when modern science fails to come up with a solution, you know, because I struggle with that. I do believe in medicine, and I do believe in GP care. I'm not anti-science at all. I kept up with the same regime that I found worked best, but it was Rachel's work that made the difference. Yeah.
And I've also worked with Julia Callan. I do talk about her book quite a bit, Soul Speak, and she talks about how everything is emotional. It doesn't matter whether it's blurred vision or cataract or fluid build-up, whatever it is, it's all emotional because it's your body's. We store emotions in different parts of our body, and it's just that your body, you know, it's like trapped wind. It hurts. So it's your body going, look, you suppressed this so far, so much. Will you please just take a look, like a warning light on a dashboard of a vehicle?
It's like a call for help.
It is a call for help. It's like a flag waving. Please, can you just address what's going on?
And I think what Rachel helped me to do is to sort of get into a body dialogue, a conversation with what was really going on. And people might think that's really woohoo, but seriously is all the parts of us that existed when we were little are still inside. You know, there's still, that little girl was still there.
That's why the inner child works so well. And as well, it's when you've got that feeling that you've not listened to or not heard, that part sort of gets fragmented a little bit. don't they, sort of get into the corner and just feel like they're wounded. And so that's where these parts play, and it's all perfect natural. We're not talking about schizophrenia here, we're talking about a natural thing where we all have different parts that play different roles. That anger that is you, there's a role for that. The wounded part, there's a role for that. What is it about? I can't sleep, what's that about? There's loads of different things. We all think it's our personality, but actually it's a response to trauma and those old beliefs. So, you know, people say, oh, I've always been scared of whatever, but actually there's something going on, there's a trauma response to it, and so that you can release it. It's beautiful. And I love the work we do because it's just so empowering, and you never know where you're going to go, do you? It's really quite exciting.
It is. And I think we spend a lot of time sort of getting down on our bodies, you know, getting cross and frustrated, but actually that if anyone loves us, it's our body. It's trying to help us all the time, even when it feels like it's causing the most annoying problems or worse. It's actually trying to help. And that's a big shift in understanding and awareness. But I highly recommend Rachel, because she really, honestly, this is something that evaded my, because I do similar work, and I couldn't get a resolution on this, and it was a puzzle, and it was like, what on earth is going on with this? And I think I think that little part of me just needed that extra reassurance, and Rachel was able to bring that into the session, and it was a really really compassionate, kind, gentle inquiry. There's nothing traumatic about it. So if anybody's worried about it sort of opening up a can of worms, it's a very gentle process.
Yes, it is. And I think as well, you've already lived whatever it is that you've lived through. It's just about reviewing it so that you can put it to bed. It's just reviewing it and letting it go, not holding on to it. And that's what the beauty is. And we don't know what we're holding on to. I was talking to a client earlier this morning, and she's like, I feel really good, actually. I'm quite happy. She was painting when we got there this morning in her own house. And before that, she'd be, no, I've got to go outside. I can't be in my own house. If the kids aren't here and there's not stuff going on, I've got to be somewhere else. And she's like, I'm painting. I thought, oh, that's interesting, isn't it? She said, why? I said, well, you couldn't have done that before. And she was like, oh, yeah, I couldn't. I never really, you know, it's like, oh, yeah, you're right. And so but she said, didn't really think that what we went back to was actually the root, but it's still whatever. You don't know what you don't know. You're holding on to stuff you don't really know. It's called subconscious mind because it's below consciousness. So you don't know what you're holding on to, and whatever you've gone back to that's stopping you. And that's the beauty of uncovering it, and you'll let your mind do the work. It doesn't even feel like work. You've got your eyes closed, you're relaxed. It's just letting your mind do it.
Being on an automatic pilot, isn't it, when you're in a session? And it's just because your subconscious mind is so powerful, it can work things out, it can make the connections and bring it to your awareness. And I think when we say subconscious, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're unaware, that there's some awareness we have got and there's some awareness we haven't got, because obviously when there's something really annoying like these, that's a clear signal that it's very much active. It's not an inactive thought, it's an active belief and thought that's still ongoing. It's just looking for a resolution.
Yeah, and rewiring those old thought patterns, that's all it is. And that sounds like a bit hard, but it isn't. It's just because you're in your subconscious mind, it's just thinking about something a different way and rewiring that old thought so that you feel more empowered and less disempowered. And it is beautiful, and it's why I love what I do, and I could talk about it all day, quite honestly, because it's just great, isn't it?
It is. And I'm just I mean, I've been doing this work for a long time, and the kind of breakthroughs that we get with doing this kind of work, it's like nothing should surprise us anymore. But I was like, whoa, still amazed, because it was such a difficult thing for me to overcome on my own.
Yeah, It is. That's it. You just need that guide to help you go where you need to be, with a non-judgmental space, with that compassion and understanding, and just asking the right questions of like, isn't that interesting, because you thought that and now this is happening, and it's just looking at it that you couldn't consciously do that simultaneously yourself. So it's just, oh, that's curious, isn't it? And I'm looking for patterns that have happened then that are like now. Like the client the other day was like, I still feel trapped. I'm like, that's interesting. You felt trapped when you were 5 and you're still feeling that trapped. And it's linking those sort of old patterns together, and like, okay, let's have a look at it and release it. And it's just fabulous. I love it.
And
really empowering.
you know, and it's something you can do alongside normal GP. But I'm going to see my GP about this, and I'll have a conversation.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
And say, yes, of course it's stress-based. They acknowledge that, yeah, things like this flare when it's when there's stress. GPs do understand that stress hormones create physical reactions. But of course, we're lucky in the UK. We have the NHS. They can write a prescription for things, but we don't necessarily have the emotional support that's required to help people with unless things are very, very bad. But for something like skin complaints, that's pretty much run of the mill, isn't it? It's sort of like, yeah, you've got a bit of a rash, but it can have a big impact. So if anybody's struggling with a chronic skin condition that's really painful, or it can really get you down when you're not getting any resolution on it. So definitely look into root causes.
Yes. Yeah, then it's a thing of the past. It's something you used to have, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have to take long either. When you get to the root, you just released it. It just was something that was a problem, and it isn't anymore. You know, I really do believe that life's for living and not therapy.
Absolutely. And I think as well, I think my boyfriend's relieved about it, because it was a bit awkward to hold hands. He's very patient, he's very kind and everything, but I always used to make sure I held hands on this side because this hand wasn't as bad. And it was affected. There was
Affects everything, doesn't it? How you hold the pen, the whole thing
about yourself sometimes.
And you're a musician as well, so it must have affected how you play.
Not so much my flute, but I'm a saxophone player as well, so there's a lot of and at times it was really painful. And of course, if you're doing, your hands are on show, so it makes you feel really self-conscious as well. And especially when they were really flaring, it was like I'd keep my hands out of sight, but when you're playing you can't. And I was just self-conscious about it, and it was painful. And then the stress of playing in front of an audience probably made it worse as well.
So you're doing it now without a flare-up, which is great. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me, Sarah, and for being in this group. It's really awesome to see you, and it's fabulous that you just popped on and joined in. So thank you so much again.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'll catch you soon. Thank you so much. Bye for now. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining. If you've got any questions, then please feel free to just ask any questions you have. See you next week. Bye.